Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter, and I have been your beat reporter covering the Jacksonville Jaguars for On SI every single day since August 2019. And we are continuing to move forward through yet another offseason together. All right, folks, welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. Today we are talking about the DJ Moore trade by the Buffalo Bills and why I think it actually impacts the Jaguars and star wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. On Thursday, the Buffalo Bills traded a second-round pick to the Chicago Bears for wide receiver DJ Moore and a fifth-round pick. And, of course, DJ Moore has, $63 million guaranteed now over the next 3 years. On the surface, it looks like a bizarre overpay by desperate Buffalo Bills general manager Brandon Beane, who just several months ago seemingly took subliminal shots at Jaguars general manager James Gladstone when he talked about the young general managers in the NFL making trades when, asked about not being able to land a wide receiver. The Bills have more or less made it consistently clear since the Jakobi Meyers trade that they really wish they made that trade. I think that's been a sticking point for Beane for some time now, and it looks like he found, in his opinion, a way to make up for it. A fourth and a sixth for Jakobi Meyers as opposed to a second for Moore and a fifth, I think pretty clear which general manager, worked out the better deal there. But overall, this has a couple different layers to it and why I think it impacts the Jaguars and Brian Thomas Jr. I like to preface this by saying I've been on the side and of the opinion that the Jaguars should not trade Brian Thomas Jr. This entire offseason, I'll continue to be. I don't think the Jaguars should do it. If the Jaguars get offered a first-round pick, then yeah, I'd probably do that. There's a lot of players I would trade, though, if I was a general manager for a first-round pick. It is a pretty expansive list. And Brian Thomas Jr., yeah, he's on it. I think overall that the Jaguars haven't shown any signs that they are, wanting to or willing to move on from the former LSU star and first-round pick. I really do think a lot of it is externally pushed, outside. A lot of it, I'm sorry to say, I think is fantasy football, and a lot of people are just connecting dots. Oh, they added Jakobi Meyers and Travis Hunter. Oh, Parker Washington ascended. That must mean Brian Thomas Jr. has fallen out of favor. I think, ultimately, though, for all of it being pushed out there, one of the teams you've seen him most commonly, referenced to has been the Buffalo Bills. We've all seen the Keon Coleman and a pick for Brian Thomas trade, as diabolical and despicable as those projections were. We've seen them. We know that the Bills have been tied to Thomas Jr. quite a bit through external forces, not through any actual reporting or anything like that, but there was a lot of reasons to think the Bills made sense. Like I said, Brandon Beane is desperate. He's one of the most desperate men in football. That's easy. They just fired Sean McDermott instead of you. You bet he's desperate. And it was very clear that, he's been looking to make a big move at receiver for some time now. He was hoping Keon Coleman would end up being that guy for them. He very clearly wasn't. They've been looking for somebody to step into a big role in their receiver room. So it made a lot of sense why they were seen as a potential Brian Thomas Jr. suitor. But now, you send a second for DJ Moore. They're not in the Brian Thomas Jr. conversation. They'd have to send the first. Especially now that they sent their second. Not to say I think the Jaguars would trade BTJ for a second, but especially now that their second is out of the conversation. And I don't foresee the Buffalo Bills trading a first and second for wide receivers already in the NFL. And that is all to say I do think that the ultimate price that Buffalo paid will make it tougher for Jacksonville to move Brian Thomas Jr. if they even wanted to. And I'm not of the opinion that they want to. Would they with the right offer? I'm sure they would. I think they would do that for most players. But right now, if you're James Gladstone, the right offer, how are you accepting less than what the Bears just got for DJ Moore? DJ Moore is not only significantly more expensive and not only produced similar numbers last season to what Brian Thomas Jr. produced in what has been seen as a overwhelmingly disappointing season. He's 5.5 years older than Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr., he's still 2 years on a rookie deal, plus the fifth-year option, so he's still 3 years on a team-controlled contract. I mean, his ceiling has been higher than what DJ Moore showed in the past what his ceiling was. And if BTJ's floor is what he did last year, that's about what DJ Moore gave the Bears. Sans a couple highlight plays. So if I'm James Gladstone, I get offered, the Steelers, what is it, 52nd pick? I'm saying no. You need to offer more. There can't be a scenario where Brian Thomas Jr. and DJ Moore are going for, similar costs. That would be a mistake from James Gladstone. And frankly, I don't think that's a mistake that his front office is likely to make. I think if anything, this showed, the Eagles and A.J. Brown. If DJ Moore's going for a second, I know a fifth was involved. I know, but still, A.J. Brown has to go for something intensely high. And I do think this trade shows, and I think the Trent McDuffie trade shows this too, what the NFL makes of this draft class. It's not a great draft class, especially at the top. It's a lot of, seems like really good values on day 2, but how many all-pros are in this draft? Who knows? Nobody knows. But in the work scouts have done on this class, I think, it's one of the more uninspiring classes in recent years. I'd say it doesn't remind me of the 2013 draft because there were good players in that class, so there weren't many great players. There's at least a couple great players in this class. Like I know Caleb Downs is great. Arvell Reese is great. Jeremiah Love is great. The issue, though, is when you see teams start to be comfortable with moving away from top picks in this draft, the question is just how high is the ceiling of this draft? If this is how the NFL feels about this class, then Brian Thomas Jr.'s worth can't be below a first-round pick. Nobody, you can make the argument that nobody who will be drafted in the first round can give a team what Brian Thomas Jr. can give them for the next 2 seasons on a cheap deal. And again, I say all of this while coming from the perspective of I think the Jaguars would be wrong to trade Brian Thomas Jr. I don't think it makes a ton of sense. I think that, frankly, he's more valuable to them than he is to most other places. He's still the talented receiver that he was a year ago. Was it a clean and picture-perfect fit in Liam Cohen's system right off the bat? No, it wasn't. But I think it got better as the year went on. And yeah, if there's a team absolutely desperate enough and they're willing to send a first-round pick, that's a different story. That would be hard if I was James Gladstone to say no to. But otherwise, I think this DJ Moore trade, unless the Jaguars' value on Brian Thomas Jr. is just so much lower than what we can imagine, I believe that this DJ Moore trade made it more likely that he will play for the Jaguars next season. Because I'm not sure if a team will be willing to give up a first for him. And I'm not sure the Jaguars should accept anything less. It's an interesting dynamic. And that's what free agency is all about. The shifting power dynamics in each position group's, market. The Bills made it pretty clear how much they value DJ Moore. They paid a steep price. And because of that steep price, I think there will be more than one way that the Jacksonville Jaguars and Brian Thomas Jr. are affected. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. We'll be back next time.